morning. David?
David Moore, Dallas Morning News. And before we get into practice this week, can you talk a little bit about, we asked you about how guys look in practice. Who looked best in your beach excursion over the weekend?
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of competition down there. I mean, the cornhole was aggressively played. The dominoes games were highly competitive. But no, it was a nice event. I mean, it was good to go down to the beach, and I know you guys enjoyed it. The food trucks were excellent, so it was a good break.
And follow up on that, just this week, since you'll be breaking and going to Denver on Thursday, what in these next couple of days here, how do you change up what you're doing? What do you want to accomplish before you get to Denver?
Well, today and tomorrow will look similar to last week. Today is install 7, tomorrow's install 8. So these will be, the goals I have highly competitive practices, a lot of situations. You'll see a lot of last 8 situations today, a 2-minute drill. The mojo moment to be, some things go on there. So just want to have 2 really competitive install practices. We want to build off of what we got done on Thursday and Saturday. I really like the quality of work. The teaching tape for Saturday was phenomenal. Our mojo moment, just all the different situations that occurred and the game management situations that were in that sequence were awesome. So, and I think just like anything, and I told the team this, I said, there's always a point in camp where you feel like you take a big step towards, hey, this is starting to be how it looks, in a consistent basis. We've had good plays, we had good sequence of plays, but to see the back and forth and the competition and responding to each situation, I thought the Saturday work was really good. And just like anything, coming off a day off, you want to get out there and crank it up. We're gonna have a great crowd today. Obviously with the military and the first responders and the public safety will be here, so we'll honor them today. And I'm looking forward to a heck of a practice.
Clarence Hill, Forward Star Telegram. Will Anthony Barr go today? Have you seen enough for him to?
He's going to work with Britt today, so and hopeful maybe tomorrow we'll look at expanding that role. So we're kind of taking a ramp up mode. Ramp up was 4 days, so we're kind of staying true to that.
Hey, Coach, Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Status update on Jabril Cox. Is he expected to practice today?
Jabril will do a little more today. You may see him in there an individual, but it'll really go based off of the early work too. So we want to start integrating him in more. Same with Jake Ferguson.
John Michelle, The Athletic. When you do those type of things, like take the guys to the beach, stuff like that, I'm sure you've done it before in your career. What do you think is the biggest thing they get out of it? Is it just getting out of this environment and being together? Or what do you think they?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's being normal for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Have conversations with guys that you normally wouldn't have or didn't have the time, or take the time. So, and I think getting off campus is always healthy. But yeah, I've always felt the group dynamic emphasis was just important to your team, and I think it's, I think the players need to do a lot of it themselves, but I think when you can integrate everybody with the coaching staff and support staff, I think it's very, very healthy. I think everybody enjoyed themselves.
Mike Todd Archer of the ESPN. Last year with Micah, were you guys at a point where you just felt like you don't want to put too much on his plate too soon? And this year, because he's shown it, are you just saying, hey, to give him everything?
Well, I would say we really challenged Micah last year. And really pushed him. Pushed him outside of his comfort zone. Just to, we felt like we needed to, and just tried to take advantage of the flexibility and multiplicity it gives us. I mean, there was a time where he was the green dot. I mean, I think that's. I mean, go back through history and see how many guys came into the league and obviously playing the positions, the skill position that he played as a pass rusher and a Mike linebacker also did the green dot. So I think clearly pushing him last year was very beneficial for both him and our defense and our defensive staff. So, and I think it clearly has helped his understanding, not only not just what he does, but what everybody else does. So, I think the path of how we coach him today, he really has his own coach in Scott McCurley, and Anthony Barr will be part of that. When you got a player that's in the pass rush plan, but also has to be part of all the coverage and the pressure adjustments and so forth. I mean, he needs a little more time and a little more detailed, application in their meeting time. So I think the adjustment from last year to this year is working out very well.
Mike Galkin, Dallas Morning News. At running back, first, is Rico coming back today? And second, Malik Davis, what have you seen from him thus far?
I think Malik's done a nice job. I think just clearly, if you look at the backs, the last two practices, they've had to carry the workload, so he benefited from that. But as far as Rico, the plan is that for him to, I know he had some testing this morning. So when we had our staff meeting this morning at 7, his status was not determined. So I know he has some testing. So he is a maybe for today, and hopefully by tomorrow.
Any thought of maybe leaving early here this week and maybe getting 2 scrimmage days with the Broncos?
Two down in Irvine is not enough for you? I mean, my God. I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of, we'll evaluate everything we do, but the fact that today and tomorrow is our last pad of work here in Oxnard, I'm kind of second guessing the schedule. I mean, what the hell was I thinking about? So, but it's going to be 95, 98 degrees up here Thursday, and it's supposed to be, just with the, everything that goes into that. So I think going one is preferred, and but hey, this is new for me, So this is I think it's definitely something that we needed to do. That's why we did it. And I think it'll be really good for our players. But, the travel and all those things, it's stress. It's part of the stress of travel. And it's these conversations you have with nutrition and the strength staff and the medical staff, it's all, it's all factored in. So, but no, I would prefer one practice because you're able to still get done what we're getting done here at the beginning. We're going to have 2 outstanding practices before we get on the plane Wednesday. So, I do like the way this week looks. I think next week's going to be a challenge.
Brad Sham, Babe Laufenberg's bag carrier. You mentioned Bohanna last week. Would you say a little bit more specifically about both Bohanna and Golston and how they're different from last year?
Well, I mean, just clearly look at their physical development. I think they're both, had an opportunity to go through the strength and conditioning program. The expectation, Chauncey's obviously put on a lot of size and strength. Bo has been that anchor that we thought he would be a lot more consistently. I think he's been a force in there. Frankly, we got to get him more reps. They need more work, just because of the different personnel groups, and we do so much in sub. So getting those guys, some more reps and some extra conditioning and things like that has really been the focus. But I think they clearly are in the process of making that second-year jump.
Coach, from our end, the way we looked at it, it seemed like the defense got after the offense. Defensive line got after the offensive line on Saturday. How do you look at it? Is that good defense, bad offense? How do you evaluate that?
I think if you have a chance to talk to people around the league, and I think it's really been magnified the last 2 years, and I think it started in 11. Your offensive line is usually behind your defensive line. I mean, if you look at the off-season program, the training that you can do over the summer, it's definitely more conducive to the defensive front than it is to the protection unit or the run blocking unit. Just the old linemen, they need pads. They need the pads on to get the real work, to get the fits right, and so forth. So I think that the process is normal. To answer your question, I think your second on offensive line is usually, if you're going by position group, your second offensive line group's usually the one that makes the move later than the other groups, just in my experience. So I thought we ran the ball well. I could see the run game Thursday and Saturday coming together. I think there's been some really good crease runs in there, both with the runners, but you can see the combination blocks are coming together. The time clock and it's opening accordingly. So I see improvement throughout the week, but I'm not ready to crown one over the other. And these install practices too are a challenge. I mean, I think Kellen and Dan have done a really good job working together to try to keep the looks, balanced, where certain play calls are not totally slanted one way to the other.
Piggybacking on a question earlier about Golston and Bohanna, Deshaun Wright, Izzy Mukwamu, and some others from your rookie class last year, there seems to be a real increase in play strength just from the strength and conditioning program. Can you go into a little more detail, more broadly, about how that group has grown from last year?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think any time, a kind of rule of thumb that it's been my experience and something that we started charting back in 2009 is, the ability to put on 10 pounds of lean muscle mass and make advancements. Obviously that's more specific to the individual and the position he plays, but those two guys clearly hit the mark on that. So I think that speaks to the individual. It speaks to the success of our strength and conditioning program. This team's commitment, you could see it back in February. In March we had over 40 players there on a regular basis, so taking advantage of the nutrition and so forth. So, but I think it's a great illustration of guys putting the work in, and it's all part of that second-year jump. And those two guys, they've done a hell of a job.
Mike, as you and other coaches kind of figure out the best way to train with 3 preseason games, in your conversations, do you generally see that, these scrimmages are going to be valuable for the starters in a controlled setting, and the preseason games will be more about opportunities for the younger players, or do you view it breaking down that?
Can you save that question for Friday? That's you put a lot of time into it. Very well delivered. But whatever you need, Clarence, whatever you guys need, right, Tad? Tad's, he's got you saying your names. This is beautiful. We laugh like hell every time you guys do it too. So it's good. It's good to see you go both ways here. Yeah.
David Hellman, Fox Sports. I asked Bones this as well. I'm just curious. You had Greg for your first 2 years here, a guy that's done a lot of kicking, been to the Pro Bowl. How does your approach change when a guy who has less experience like these two does struggles in camp versus a longtime vet?
I think the obvious one is you need more data. You need more information. So we're trying to do as much as we possibly can in a competitive environment, and I think that's clearly shows to the experience of the two kickers competing. So that's the biggest change. Remember Greg was coming off off the surgery this time last year. So the process of how we kicked him and all that was totally different.
How heavily do these 2 preseason games out here factor into that evaluation?
Oh, I think what we do every day factors. We're taking it the first. We break from stretch. We're taking the first 6 minutes today. It's been the first 9 minutes the last 4 practices. So I think it clearly shows the emphasis we have on the competition. Yeah.
William Steele of A to Z Sports Dallas. How much do you weigh veteran special teams ability with young players who are developing that may not have that much special teams experience?
That's an excellent question. That's all part of the projection. When you're part of a draft and develop program, there's definitely some leaps you have to take. But that's why we work the hours we do. That's why the interaction with these players is so important. I think Bones and Stu do a tremendous job. In the special teams, obviously they have their scheduled meeting time like everybody else, but you cannot walk past our special teams room. Now he's got way too much candy and cookies and all that other. He's killing the nutrition plan here, but you never go past their room where there isn't 5, 6, 7 guys in there. So, and I think that shows you, they're understanding how important it is. It's a vehicle under the 53. And with that, it makes it both competitive for the veterans and the young guys. So this is what training camp's for. The fact that you can be back to the meeting room in 2 minutes, speaks volumes to that. But, I think our special team coaches and players do a really good job of getting in the extra work.
Tyler Dixon with the AP. Somewhat related to that on Turpin. Now that you've been around him a little bit, what prospects do you see of him contributing as a receiver, and how much is that important for a role for him on the roster?
Been very, very impressed with Turpin. Just from day one, he came in and, introduced him in the team meeting. He had a Pittsburgh Pirate hat on, so that, made a huge first impression. But he's everything we thought he was. Will was excited about, the tape that he put together in the USFL and even talking to Daryl Johnson, back during the year. He was excited about him right away, even before the games were played too. So, it's definitely young man we had our eye on. It's great to get him in here. But the thing I've been most impressed with is just the way he's jumped in there. He's picking up the language quickly. He's done a really nice job in the wide receiver room. Just the reps that he's been given in the return game, he looks like he's a good fit for how we want to play there. So I'm excited about what's in front of him.
How has your working relationship kind of evolved with Will McClay? And then I know it's not the same job title, but are there any similarities to your working relationship with Ted Thompson?
Oh, definitely. A lot of similarities. One thing that that Ted and I established was, you got to make sure you talk at least once a day, and it's just part of my operation. Oh shoot, I'm a big fan of the Bronx Tale, and I'm not gonna get into all that. But anyways, I think you need to be where you're responsible for every day. So if you're in charge of the trainers, or if you're in charge of the coaching staff, I think you need to be there. Make sure you're part of that every day, even if it's in the morning to check in with Jim to have coffee, because that's what I do every morning, because Jim's an early riser. So, and it's the same thing with Will. I mean, I always circle through Will's office, or he does mine, and I just think it's just really healthy, because obviously the relationship between personnel and coaching is vital to any football operations. I mean, you see the breakdowns, year in and year out in our industry, where one's not on the same page as the other, or whatever happens. So that relationship's important, and then obviously you got to have the same connection with Steven and Jerry. So that just the fact that network of communication, it needs to be fluid, it needs to be consistent, and and I think we do a good job of that.
Joe Trahan, WFAA. Following up on the Turpin question, Mike, in your data research, is there a number by which you can let those smaller stature guys have touches? Have you found that sweet spot?
Well, that's a great question. I have not. I know the only one I'd have to compare it to would be Randall Cobb, and I know my focus on a weekly basis for Randall in those, how can we get him to touch the ball 10 times? Whether it's through receiving, through the return game, whether it was put him in the backfield. So that's the only time, in my career, game plan wise, that I had that piece that we did some of it with Cedric Wilson. Tony's at a different. I might put Tony in a different category. So, because Tony could do a lot of things. So, but yeah, just top of my head, I think if you really think about touches versus how many plays they play, that's the only person I've ever done it with.
As a smaller statured guy, we can handle it all. But,
Good one.
wow.
Clarence with humor. Did you guys get that?
No, indeed.
Get him back on.
He needs help, definitely.
Get him back on Turpin again.
Yeah.
The smaller statured guy. He's played football year round for like 3 or 4 years. I was coming off USFL. I mean, clearly that's impressive. Do you worry about him hitting the wall at all?
I mean, that's a great question, and I think that's something we got to learn as we go. I mean, it's something that, I just my exposure to him and the way he's wired, and I know how Robert Prince feels about him, and he's all go all day, every day. So, I don't see any concerning, examples that we need to look into that. But I mean, that's a good point.
Not a Turpin question, but when do you guys start thinking about the 53? And those personnel meetings, do they start yet, or they start?
No, we haven't had one conversation about that. Yeah, it's to be honest with you, this time of camp is to make sure we're hitting the target, giving these players an opportunity. You work the whole off season to put together the best 90-man roster you can. So let's maximize it out. I understand that, when you have an injury here, everybody wants you to run up, but we got a lot of time invested in each other, players and coaches here. So, and that's why these next 2 days are so important. I mean, this is about creating opportunities to make sure that we get a really good evaluation on everybody.
First preseason game against the Broncos. What's your process as far as deciding how to split the reps between your backup quarterbacks, Rear, DiNucci, and Rush? And is that static or is it fluid?
Well, it's an excellent question. We met this morning, and we'll have that conversation again Tuesday night. I mean, just not to be redundant, but our focus is these next 2 practices. We want to get through, and then we'll see where we are, from a medical standpoint. But as a coaching staff, we'll do that. That's our Tuesday night staff meeting.
Be Anthony Barr or Turpin, when you don't have a guy in the spring and you don't have the GPS data, how do you go through the process of kind of understanding his workload capacity to know when you're pushing too much?
Well, I mean, that's why the earlier question about Anthony, I mean, I think you have to put him through a ramp-up phase. And, obviously his work with Britt the first day, and it's obviously he's a veteran player. He's played a lot of football. I mean, so you get a general understanding on where he is condition-wise. And, I mean, Anthony's a pro. He's done this for a long time. There hasn't been anything that concerns me about his transition into full pads. But, we just got to be smart.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.